Buddhist souls. Why Ken's wrong. Buddhist souls seem to oddly preoccupy Ken Wheeler. Find out why his views insult Buddhist doctrine and how we know the angry photographer's ideas would offend the historical Buddha. Ananda Coomaraswamy, an early interpreter of Asian culture to the West and one of Ken Wheeler's heroes, wrote, "No one will wish to deny that the truths of early Buddhism are true, or that the stress that was laid on anicca, transience, and anatta, no eternal soul, and the thought of salvation here and now, constituted a permanent contribution to our realization of things as they really are." The angry photographer claims to be the world's foremost authority on the term anatta, the Pali word for no soul. It's one of many subjects on which he sets himself up as a fake expert while viewing the consensus among genuine scholars as a conspiracy. In his On Anatta Anatman in Fact and Doctrine, Ken Wheeler poses the question, if the Buddha disbelieved in an Atman, soul, why did he not deny the Atman unambiguously? There is no such denial. Well, as a matter of fact, there is. It's in the Anatta Lakkhana Sutra, one of the earliest Buddhist scriptures we have. In fact, it's the second sermon the Buddha ever preached, and it explains the term anatta, no soul. In this passage, the Buddha says, whatever consciousness there is, whether past, future, or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, all consciousness should be seen as it really is with correct wisdom thus. This is not mine, this I am not, this is not my soul, anatta. In the Alagga Dupama Sutra, the Buddha says, after death, this I will be constant, permanent, eternal, not subject to change. I will stay just like that for an eternity. Isn't it utterly and completely a fool's teaching? His followers reply, what else could it be, Lord? It's utterly and completely a fool's teaching. Contrary to what Ken Wheeler tries to argue, the Buddha didn't teach any kind of permanent consciousness or higher self. The Buddha maintained what his followers called the noble silence about certain topics, particularly the afterlife. He felt that thinking about them was a pointless distraction and that disputing about them was counterproductive. Since the angry photographer is dead wrong about Buddhist scriptures, there's an even more ironic logical fallacy underlying his claims. He arbitrarily decrees that all religious debates must be sola scriptura. The Buddha himself specifically opposes Ken Wheeler's sola scriptura approach in the Kalama Sutra. Asked how to distinguish between true and false doctrines, the Buddha cautions his followers as follows. Do not go upon what has been inquired by repeated hearing, nor upon tradition, nor upon rumor, nor upon what is in a scripture. In The Merchant of Venice, Shakespeare wrote, the devil can quote scripture for his own purpose. The same goes for the angry photographer. One of his more egregious distortions is to mistranslate the Pali word chitta, which, according to the Pali Text Society, means heart, as soul. Chitta can mean the organ in our chest, more often, as in English. It symbolizes loving kindness, hope, or compassion, as in, don't be so mean, have a heart, or keep going, don't lose heart. Here's one of countless cases in point. In one of the Buddhist discourses the angry photographer likes to brag about, he says, this is immortality, the liberated heart which does not cling. Kentucky Ken pulls a scriptural switcheroo to render this as, this is immortality, that being the liberated soul which does not cling after anything. In his more recent paper entitled A Primer on the Theurgy of Liberation as Against Meditation Dogma, the Theoria Apophasis host uses a different mistranslation of precisely the same passage. Here it reads, this is immortality, that being the liberated mind, will, chitta, which does not cling after anything. So, does the Pali word chitta mean soul, mind, or will? These words aren't synonyms, so it can't mean all three things. The answer is that in Ken Wheeler's mind, like Lewis Carroll's Humpty Dumpty, when I use a word, it means just what I choose it to mean, neither more or less. Alice's reply applies equally to Humpty Dumpty and Ken Wheeler when she says, "The question is whether you can make words mean so many different things." Neither of them pulls it off. He rarely mentions her name, but the angry photographer is latching onto the views of the discredited eccentric scholar Caroline Rhys-Davids. Tragically, Rhys-Davids' son died in World War I, and her husband, also a Buddhist scholar, passed away shortly after that in 1922. Traumatized by these losses, she fell prey to the spiritualism fad that was sweeping Britain at the time. The celebrated scholar began taking part in seances, claimed to hear the voices of the dead, and believed her spirit could literally visit the great beyond by dreaming. As a result, scholars view her later work as an incoherent embarrassment. Ken Wheeler is entitled to believe anything he wants about the soul and the afterlife. Even so, he's not entitled to put words in the Buddha's mouth. Ken Wheeler has many ironic opinions. In this case, he tries to assert his dubious expertise about Buddhism by violating one of the Buddha's most authentic and fundamental tenets. And yet, he persists.